And there was an outburst in the courtroom this morning as closing arguments were being heard in the triple murder trial.
Getting close to the Hells Angels is no easy task. They're secretive, unpredictable, and not exactly known for their willingness to chat. But where there's a wall, there's often a crack. And that's where this story begins. Over the years, some insiders, former members, and undercover operatives have shared a lot about the gang. And this video is all about that. Starting with Charles Goldsmith, a rowdy member and the president of the Hells Angels gang. This means this guy was right in the thick of the action, and boy, did he have a lot of secrets to spill. In this specific interview, he told the world about how horrifying the brawls involving Hells Angels could be.
The weird part was, it's kind of weird to explain it to you. It's like they were at war with the outlaws, but then they didn't want to really have the confrontation with them. But you could cut the tension in the air with a knife. It was that thick. So in the early mornings when we were going in, it was so weird. There's probably 25 feet between us, that door and this door. We were all at this door. They were all at that door, waiting for the doors to open. And I just made a suggestion. I said,
he casually talked about a fight between the Hells Angels and the Outlaws that turned into mortal combat.
But they come walking through, and they were walking through pretty cocky, like, you ain't gonna do nothing. And boom, 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 and they started getting thumped pretty hard. And then one guy, he come running by me, and I just grabbed him, I threw him to the ground, and I was just, boom, punch him, because that's what I do, So I'm punching him, and I can hear his gurgling sound, and I look back, and another brother he's not in the club anymore. He's in prison doing life for murder, and he was just sticking him, and man, as he was pulling it out, I could see all his intestines coming out, and I just got off of him, and I was like, oh, this guy's done,
Not only that, but during the interview, he just slipped a pretty disturbing detail about a gang member without hesitation, and that's just wild. Apparently, some guy ripped out the intestines of a member of the Outlaws using his tiny knife. Yikes.
Talking about, when we were coming back from San Francisco to Las Vegas, I told those guys, I said, hey man, this is a rough ride, man. You guys really want to pack your old ladies? I've seen some bad shit, man. And I says, it's up to you guys. I had no authority to tell anybody what to do, so I just said, hey, it's up to you, but I wouldn't do it. So most of the guys listened, and they put their girls in the truck, was pulling a trailer.
In another instance, Pee Wee details another pretty disturbing accident.
But we got 30 miles to go. I said, it's up to you. You want to do it? It's on you. And he went over and told her, come on. And she put on one of those novelty hats, the ones that are, not DOT. I mean, it's just fiberglass, and she put that on. He had a full-faced DOT helmet on, and he was riding right behind me. There's about 16 of us in a pack, and I was riding next to this guy from Massachusetts. His name is Don. He's out of club too now, and he's riding next to me. And it was just about dusk, where the sun is going down, and we were only about 10 miles from the gas station, and there laying in the road was one of those big giant alligator belts from off a semi. But it was the whole tire, man, just the whole belt itself laying on its side, put in drainage ditches and stuff like that. So it was all fresh gravel. And it was deep, thick, like 2 feet thick. I knew I'd go tumbling if I hit it. As soon as we saw the tire, Don yells, look out! And we kind of part like that. It was in the middle of us. But you got to remember, there's a lane next to us, and there's a semi, so we couldn't go under the semi. So Don went over as much as he could, and I cut over. It was more on my side when I hit it. I'm just telling you what the guys behind me said, because I wouldn't even know. When I hit that thing, it felt like I hit a brick, like a brick wall. That's how hard that thing was. I flew over it. It sheared my foot pegs off my bike, tore it right off the frame.
It was a long ride, about 30 miles on a rocky road. A pack of 16 members were out to ride together. Although Pee Wee asked the guys to send the women in the trailer, some of them didn't listen. What happened next was terrifying.
With his girl on the back of the bike, I see his bike tumble head over, feet, boom, boom, boom. I could see it in my mirror. I went off into the stones like a runoff ramp for a truck, and my bike just went, just stopped right in the stones. I didn't even have to put the kickstand down, it was so deep. I shut the bike off. I ran back to the scene. Kevin was laying on the side, and he was like, his face was all, his helmet was like totally wrecked, right, from rolling around. Then I ran over to the bike, and it's weird to explain this to you because I told you I saw him tumbling, like bike, boom, boom, doing this. The bike was sitting like this, and she was on the bike, and the bike was just laying on the ground. Her leg was folded up like that. And she had her arms straight out, and she was looking straight up at like this. And I walked over and I looked at her, and the whole top of her head was gone. Her brain was running out of her head on the asphalt, and the hot asphalt, you know, being 114 degrees that day, it was just bubbling, and it was.
10 miles into the trip was a rocky terrain. The pack took either side of the lanes to skip the bad patch, but not all of them obliged. One motorbike hit the patch and toppled over. The woman at the back fell and lost half of her head. With the scorching temperature, her brain had started to boil. Quite literally, geez. But this next guy shared even more weird stories. The guy in question is Jay Dobbins, an undercover agent who worked with the Hells Angels gang for 2 long years. And there's no denying that when he came out in the open, he had a lot of interesting things to tell the public. In an exclusive interview, Dobbins detailed the harrowing story of the time when he killed a target to be accepted into the gang. Well, he staged the kill with the other detectives. But here's why it is disturbing.
Business. The charter gets together and there's no mitigation of it. Here's the gun, here's how you do it. Shoot him in the ear, shoot him in the eye, disassemble the gun. It's got the serial number obliterated. All the instructions on how they want it done. Not in the slightest bit concerned with what my plan is.
His story just confirms that the only way to get accepted is if you kill the victim a certain way. Follow the instructions of the gang and you're good. Otherwise, you face the same fate as the victim.
Hells Angels. I delivered it to him in a FedEx box that was addressed to me out of Mexico. I remember when I could hear the motorcycles showing up, that they were there to put this ruse on for him. I told my partner, I don't know how these guys are going to react to this. They're going to be implicated in a murder once we tell them about this. I don't know if they're going to embrace us or if they're going to want to kill us. Do not let one of these dudes get behind you. You make sure you stand behind them. Do not let one of these guys get a shot on us from behind. They're going through it. They see the cut. One of the guys takes the box and he turns his back to the rest of the crew and he pulls the cut out and you hear him say, "Whoa." Well, none of us can see what he's looking at. And another one of the members says, "Well, what is it?" He's like, "It's a Mongol cut." And he turns around, he holds it up, and it's got blood on it. And then there's digital pictures of this guy laying in the dirt with his brains popped out, blood all splattered around him. And I told him the story about how we encountered this guy and we found him and we took care of business and we did things the Hells Angels way. Me or you, if someone delivers us evidence of a murder, you know, as we're running away or walking away, we're dialing 911, trying to get some help. Exact opposite with these guys. Hugs, kisses, welcome to the club. How does it feel to be a Hells Angel? You're a member now. One of the members put his cut on my back and said, "You wear this one until you get your own." Complete acceptance, complete approval for what we had done.
Most of all, the gang needs proof that the victim has been killed. That's where the cow guts and blood came in from the agency. Dobbins delivered the package to the gang and instantly got praise for his terrifying acts. Wild. That's not all that Dobbins had to say.
That incident and one other. The Harris Casino riot, obviously, the Hells Angels, especially a lot of them from Arizona, were operating with impunity. There was just violence, spinning and swirling around these guys nonstop.
In another interview, he told the public about the famous murder case of Cynthia Garcia.
There was also the murder of a lady named Cynthia Garcia, who was at a party at the Hells Angels Clubhouse in Mesa, Arizona, which Mesa is a suburb that's east of Phoenix.
This woman was stabbed in the chest 20 times. Surprisingly, she was still alive. So the members stabbed and stabbed until she ran out of breath. In fact, one gang member wanted her head as a morbid trophy, but that scheme didn't work out because of his dull blade. But wait, there's more. Do you know why she was murdered? Because she insulted the group. Yep. For that, she was forced to see a horrible end. That's why the ATF wanted the agents on this violent gang, George Christie. Meet the ex-president of the Hells Angels Club, George Christie. He was with the gang for the longest time and was part of the most violent fights in the club. So, naturally, he had a lot to tell.
Of you don't want to with these guys. There was a lot of serious things going on back there. There was a lot of police corruption. They were corrupting the court system. There was a lot of gambling, numbers rackets. It was a very, very dangerous time. The Hells Angels were definitely in the middle of it.
Christie talked about the time when the gang was dominating everywhere. Apparently, the talk of the town was that the Hells Angels were behind every dirty work going around.
There have been rumors for years that East Coast Hells Angels, other club members have contracted out work for various hits. True or not, I don't know, but it certainly was a rumor that circulated in the 70s and the 80s.
But the most common act of crime was contract killing, hire people, and fire people. Nobody could name who ordered the assassination, but everyone knew. Unsurprisingly, the members didn't do the dirty work themselves.
Probably the oldest reason in the world was that one of the Hells Angels' ex-wife was now living with a Mongol. And we went to a swap meet. There was 9 of us. It was about 40 to 60 Mongols, and we met them by accident.
By accident.
The member whose wife had run off with the Mongol, their eyes met, and I looked at both of them, and I knew it was on. Because I knew the history. This guy was my best friend, the Hells Angels. And
in another interview, he recalled one of the violent fights of the 70s. He also stated the obvious reason behind their gang rivalries. Apparently, an ex-wife of the Hells Angels had married a guy from the other gang.
It was on. We got in a circle, and they were surrounding us, and we were fighting.
Everyone's fighting, or just
everybody's,
the two? Yeah,
everybody's fighting, man.
Yeah.
The Hells Angels and the Mongols are fighting. And Jesse, who later became my vice president in Los Angeles when I took over the club down there, and later became a Hells Angel here in Ventura, fell down. This big Mongol hit him, and he fell down. And I kind of looked out of the corner of my eye, and he had his arms spread out. And there was a motor sprocket gear there. And motor sprockets are about this big with spikes on it and a hole in the center. He hooked it on his hand, he jumped up, and he just started hacking people. And there was blood and flesh flying and people screaming and, everybody fighting. And in the middle...
Later, the two gangs broke into a war. 40 Mongols and about 9 Hells Angels members. But neither party refused to back down. Before you know it, the fight had started. Punches, smacks, kicks. It was pure chaos. Suddenly, one big guy who had fallen down decided to spice up the battle. Blood, pieces of flesh, cries everywhere. But then, a police officer came and tried to stop the fight. Sadly, the two gangs wanted a reason to fight, so more cops had to be called in to beat them out of fighting with one another. That's just the tip of the iceberg. The Hells Angels ran a pretty serious business, and a very secret one too.
I think I was vice president at the time, possibly. And, I told you I led from the front. I was a working president. I got out there in the field with my guys, and we got word that this guy was selling drugs in Los Angeles, and he had a fake Hells Angel patch. And so, we did some intel, and we found out his car, and we ID'd him. And I waited in the back of his car for 3 or 4 hours. And I was in the back, had a blanket over me, and I could literally hear him walking on the rocks. It was a parking lot with rocks in it.
Here's another tale of the guy who was wearing a fake Angels patch. Christie, although the vice president, was the one who hid in the vehicle.
Then, you stick the key in the door and turn it. And these two guys got in the car. I popped up, and I had this silenced equipped 22. I stuck that gun in the back of his ear, and I told him to keep his hands on the wheel. And the other guy told him to put his hands on the dash. And I said, I came for the patch. And of course he played, I don't know what you're talking about. So we just said, well, let's go, man. And he goes, where are we going? I go, we're going to the desert. And see if your memory's any better out there. And we rode out to the desert.
Then, using his shotgun, he forced the drug dealer to drive to a desert and made him dig 2 graves there. That broke the drug dealer to the point that he started crying. The Angels then let him go, but not before taking back the fake Angels patch and stealing 2 keys of coke, $30,000 and $10,000 of jewelry. Also, did he really say that one member just randomly tased the drug dealer simply because he wanted to? Boy, oh boy.
The night I got voted in the club, and I walked into the clubhouse. Old man John, who was the leader of the Los Angeles Hells Angels, close friend of mine and my, mentor, he called me into the meeting room, and I walked in there, and the Hells Angels lined the walls. They were all checking me out, and he basically asked me, he said, are you ready to do this? And he gave me the opportunity to back out, I guess. That's what he may have been alluding to.
But here's the most shocking part of the whole ordeal. Once you're inside the gang, it comes before anything else. Christie described that experience as well. Nobody was allowed to come first, not before the gang. It didn't matter who it was. Call it a loyalty test or a desperate attempt to intimidate people. But the Angels seem to know exactly how to get things done. Mel Chancey. Next up, we have the former member of the Hells Angels gang. He may be big and bulky, but his stomach is pretty light when it comes to keeping secrets.
Mexican-American, you know. Johnny Angel from Oakland, you know, he was Mexican. I could go Fat Ray, I could go on and on and on. So it wasn't true, but, you know, that vibe was there. And probably the oldest reason in the world was that one of the Hells Angels' ex-wife was now living with a Mongol.
This guy told all about how the gang rivalry worked.
There was 9 of us. There's about 40 to 60 Mongols, and we met them by accident.
By accident.
And
Where was the swap meet?
it was in Santa Ana, and it was
That's a crazy place to run into somebody.
yeah. So I think it might have been the Great Western exhibit or something.
Forget beatings. If you're a rival gang, the talk could go as far as planting a bomb in your club. There is no limit to where one stops. The bomb was the 3rd biggest bomb in the history of the United States at their club. The Hells Angels were lucky that no one was inside. Otherwise, the chaos it would have caused would have wiped the city's gang clean. This is another interview in which Chancey opened up about his life in the gang.
I had to be on my game 24/7. That's why I didn't party back in the day. We were in the middle of some serious stuff. I used to tell my girl, I don't want you on the back of my motorcycle. I don't want to use you as a...
He never had his girlfriend sit on the bike with him, all because she would have been an easy target for a rival gang. Every gang member was pretty much a target for the other gang.
We buried a couple brothers, and when you lose somebody that's close to you like that, when we came in and got them, there was guys that had the guns, there was guys that were doing the beating, cut the phone wires outside, teeth getting knocked out by ball-peen hammers, and took the violence to like a whole new level. You know, shot one of our guys and killed him, then blew up our clubhouse, blew up our...
Not only that, but it was also an unspoken rule among the gangs. Never mess with any member of the Brotherhood. If you did, get ready to face the worst. The calm this guy has on his face as he speaks about one of the most violent acts is insane. I wonder how his neighbors took the news when they found out Chancey was a real-life gang member. Can you imagine seeing your neighbor pull out this shady move? Matt Zonaskar. Last on our list, we have Matt Zonaskar. This guy was the Hells Angels president at one point in time. But even before he became one, he had seen pretty much every disturbing thing going around in the gang, starting with violence. Turns out, he was part of one of the biggest and deadliest biker brawls in US history. The members of Breed had outnumbered the members of Hells Angels. Inside the small building, chaos erupted. There was blood everywhere. People were crying out of pain. Most of all, the sounds of knives slashing right, left, and corner. Zonaskar claims he cannot count the number of people gutted in the entire combat, but a police officer claims that the gang's deadliest brawl might have been staged. Whether it was self-defense or a pure act of violence, one thing is for sure, they are surely capable of it.
Plus, I knew at any given moment, you know, what was around the corner for me. I had them other guys trying to knock my head off my shoulders. None of the neighbors knew who I was. They just thought I was some big bodybuilder dude that traveled around and stuff like that. They really didn't read my tattoos because I didn't have much time for barbecues back then with everybody. Yeah, so they didn't know until one day my doors got kicked in, you know. All my neighbors that morning when they shut the block off, and here comes marching down the street all these different